What would you do if 3 men twice your size decided you didn't belong, and the only way to prove yourself was to fight all 3 of them at once? Hold that thought, because what happened in a dusty training ring in Georgia will completely change how you think about strength, skill, and what it really means to be a warrior. Picture this. It's a scorching afternoon at Fort Moore, and the air is so thick you could cut it with a knife. There's a combat training ring. Nothing fancy, just pecked dirt surrounded by old railroad ties. A crowd of soldiers sits watching, arms crossed, most of them skeptical. And standing in the middle of that ring is a woman who is about to teach everyone watching a lesson they'll never forget. Her name is Sergeant Raina Voss. She's 28 years old, 5'4", and weighs maybe 130 pounds soaking wet. To the men circling her like sharks, she looks completely out of place. They see a small woman who somehow ended up in their advanced combat instructor course, and they're convinced she's only there to fill a quota. What they don't see is the tiny dragon tattoo on her wrist, a mark that represents a story so intense, so classified that most people would think you were making it up. The guy leading the charge is Staff Sergeant Martinez. He's 6'2", 220 pounds of pure muscle, with a ranger tab on his shoulder and an ego to match. Standing with him are his buddies, Kowalski and Davis, both big guys who've made it their mission to prove that Raina doesn't belong. 4 days, they've been making comments, cracking jokes, pushing boundaries. And today they've arranged to sanction 3-on-1 match to expose what they think is the truth about lowered standards. But here's what they don't know. Here's what nobody in that training area knows except for one colonel watching from his office window. Raina Voss isn't just another soldier. She's a ghost from a program so secret it technically never existed. Let's rewind for a second. Raina grew up in Detroit, in a neighborhood where you learn to be tough, or you learn nothing at all. Her father was a Ukrainian immigrant who'd served in Soviet special forces, and he taught her something most kids never learn. That real violence is about anger or rage. It's about precision. It's about understanding angles, leverage, and knowing exactly where to apply pressure to end a fight before it really begins. When she was 13, 3 older boys cornered her in an alley. 10 minutes later, she was standing over one of them while the other 2 limped away. Her father didn't punish her. Instead, he looked at her and said something that would shape her entire life. You have the gift, but a gift without discipline is just destruction. She joined the army at 8, went through infantry training, and ended up deployed to Afghanistan. And that's where everything changed. During a routine mission supporting a female engagement team, things went sideways fast. An ambush. Bullets flying. Their interpreter went down in the first 3 seconds. The team leader, Staff Sergeant Brooks, caught shrapnel that opened her femoral artery. While everyone else was pinned down, Raina did something most soldiers with twice her experience couldn't do. She crawled 40 meters through open ground with rounds snapping overhead. Reached Brooks. Got a tourniquet on her leg while lying flat, using her own body as a shield. Then held pressure on the wound with one hand while returning fire with the other, burning through magazine after magazine. Brooks survived the helicopter ride to the hospital, and 3 weeks later, a Special Forces major pulled Raina aside and asked her a simple question. Had she ever considered a different kind of work? What came next was Operation Artemis, a classified program that officially didn't exist. They took 12 women, all combat veterans, and put them through 8 months of the most brutal training the Army had ever designed. Israeli instructors teaching close-quarters combat, former CIA officers teaching cultural engagement, Ranger-qualified medics teaching trauma medicine. The dropout rate was insane. Only 12 graduated. Each graduate received a small dragon tattoo on their wrist, invisible until you knew to look for it. The program's motto said it all. Invisible until necessary, undeniable when revealed. But then, politics happened. A congressional committee started asking questions about funding for programs they couldn't publicly discuss. Operation Artemis got quietly dissolved. The women were scattered back to regular assignments with their service records sanitized, their achievements erased, and explicit orders to never talk about what they'd done or what they'd become. Raina ended up assigned to the combat instructor course, teaching the next generation of soldiers. Most people looked at her and saw what Martinez saw. A small woman who probably could unhandle herself in a real fight. And that's exactly what she wanted them to think, until they gave her a reason to show them otherwise. So now we're back to that training ring in Georgia. The whistle blows, and Martinez charges in like a bull, going for a take. Head down, arms reaching, convinced his size and strength will end this in seconds. Reina pivots, just 45 degrees. Minimal movement. Martinez's momentum carries him past her into empty air. Before he can even process what happened, she's controlling his back, using his own forward pressure to take him to the ground. Kowalski rushes in. She releases Martinez immediately, not out of mercy but tactics. Rolls away, rises to her feet. Kowalski throws a wild hook punch. She slips it, steps inside his reach, and dumps him hard onto his back with a textbook sweep. The impact drives the air from his lungs with a grunt that echoes across the training area. Davis comes from her left, trying to grab her while she's distracted. She feels his approach through peripheral vision, drops her level, slips under his arms, and drives her shoulder into his abdomen. He stumbles backward, gasping. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Martinez gets up again, angrier now, breathing harder. He comes in more carefully this time, trying to use his wrestling experience. Gets his hands on her, locks a collar tie, starts driving forward with all his weight. For about 3 seconds, he actually thinks he has her. Then she turns her head, breaks his grip structure, and uses his own forward momentum to execute a lateral drop, taking him down while maintaining top position. Her knee settles across his chest, controlling his arm in a submission hold. She doesn't crank it, just holds the position, demonstrating control. He should tap out. Instead, he tries to explode out of it, using raw strength. She rides the movement like she's surfing a wave, transitions smoothly to his back, sinks her hooks, and slides her arm under his chin into a chokehold position. But she doesn't squeeze, just holds it there. The threat is crystal clear. She could end this anytime she wants, and that's the pattern for 2.5 minutes straight. 3 men trying increasingly desperate tactics to pin down a woman who moves like smoke. She's always half a second ahead of where they think she'll be. Nothing flashy, nothing brutal, just technically perfect. Using leverage and timing and an understanding of body mechanics that makes their size advantage completely irrelevant. By the end, Martinez is limping from a swept ankle. Kowalski has a bloody nose. Davis is on his hands and knees, chest heaving, arms trembling, and Reina is standing in the center of the ring, breathing elevated but controlled, waiting. That's when a voice cuts through the training area like a knife. Staff Sergeant Chun, hold that formation. Colonel James Whitaker steps through the gate, his command sergeant major flanking him. Every soldier in the area snaps to attention. Whitaker had been watching from his office window the entire time, and his expression says someone is about to learn a very hard lesson. He tells everyone to take a knee. Martinez sinks to the ground, confusion and dread warring on his face. Then Whitaker starts talking. His tone is quiet, almost conversational, but it carries weight that makes people listen. He explains that he'd been watching the combatives course all week because the commander received a formal complaint about a soldier who allegedly didn't meet standards. He'd reviewed everything personally, watched multiple training sessions, consulted with experts. Then he asks a simple question. Does anyone present know what Operation Artemis was? Silence. Confused looks. Martinez frowns, clearly lost. Whitaker explains. The Department of Defense initiated a classified training program to develop specialized female soldiers for missions requiring cultural access in denied areas. They took combat veterans, put them through selection standards equivalent to special operations, and provided advanced training in close-quarters combat, intelligence collection, and high-threat operations. 8 months of hell. 12 graduates. Each one received a small dragon tattoo as proof of completion. He turns and looks directly at Reina. Then he speaks her full operational summary aloud for the entire formation to hear. Deployment to Afghanistan. Combat performance. Selection for Artemis. Graduated 4th in her class. Specialized in close quarters combat and high valley. Target engagement. After the program was dissolved, she voluntarily requested assignment to teach the next generation. The weight of that information hits like artillery fire. Martinez has gone pale. Kowalski is staring at the ground. Davis looks like he might throw up. Whitaker continues. Sergeant Voss's hand-to-hand combat proficiency is rated at the level of a Special Forces operator. She holds instructor certifications in 3 martial arts disciplines. Her performance reviews from Artemis instructors, most of whom have more combat experience than everyone present combined, rated her as one of the most naturally gifted fighters they'd ever trained. Then he asks Martinez one final question, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. So tell me, Staff Sergeant, after watching what just happened in that ring, do you still believe Sergeant Voss doesn't meet the standards for this course? Martinez can't speak. His mouth opens, closes, opens again. Nothing comes out. 5 days later, Martinez receives a formal reprimand and reassignment orders. Kowalski gets written up. Davis is removed from the instructor course. The decisions come through official channels, but everyone understands who made the call. A few days after everything goes down, Staff Sergeant Chun finds Reina near the training area. He tells her he should have stopped it sooner, should have protected her better. She looks at him with those calm, unreadable eyes and says something profound. You couldn't have stopped it. He needed to learn the lesson himself. They all did. The following Monday, Reina stands in front of a new class of 23 soldiers beginning their combat certification. She doesn't mention what happened, doesn't reference her background. She simply demonstrates a technique and asks for volunteers to practice. One by one, soldiers step forward. The staff sergeant, who'd watched the match, 10-2 more. By the end of the session, the entire class is engaged, asking questions, taking notes, treating her exactly like what she is. An expert teaching her craft. After class, one of the soldiers asks carefully if what Colonel Whitaker said about Operation Artemis was true. Reina looks at him for a long moment. Then she rolls up her right sleeve slightly, showing the small dragon tattoo. She says, "The program doesn't exist anymore, but what it taught us does. If you're serious about learning, I'll teach you. Not because you're special, because you're willing." That evening, Reina sits in her barracks room, door open to catch the breeze, cleaning her boots with the methodical care her father taught her decades ago. On her wall locker sits a pair of dog tags belonging to Staff Sergeant Brooks, the woman she saved in Afghanistan. Brooks's family gave them to her after the funeral, insisting they belonged with the person who kept their daughter alive when everyone else froze. She thinks about the other 11 women from Artemis, scattered across military installations worldwide, carrying the same mark, the same skills, the same burden of being too capable to be believed. She doesn't know where they all are, but she knows they're out there, teaching, leading, proving the same lesson over and over. Here's the thing that gets me about this story. Martinez wasn't a bad soldier. He'd earned his rank legitimately, served honorably, completed Ranger School. But somewhere along the way, he started seeing the military as a zero-sum game. Every slot given to someone who didn't look like him felt like a slot taken from someone who did. And that fear, that insecurity, turned him into something he probably never intended to become. How many times do we do this in our own lives? How many times do we see someone different and assume they don't belong? How many times do we confuse different from me with less than me? How many times do we let our own insecurities turn us into the villain of someone else's story? Reina didn't need to prove anything to Martinez. She could have filed a complaint, let the system handle it. But she understood something deeper. Martinez needed to learn the lesson himself. Sometimes people won't believe the truth until they experience it firsthand. Sometimes you can't tell someone they're wrong. You have to show them. And here's what really matters. After everything, Reina didn't gloat, didn't rub it in, just went back to teaching. Because that's what warriors do. Real warriors don't fight to prove they're better than others. They fight to protect what matters, to teach the next generation, to make the people around them stronger. The dragon on Reina's wrist represents something powerful. It's not just a symbol of what she survived or what she achieved. It's a reminder that strength doesn't always look the way we expect it to. That the most dangerous warriors are often the ones nobody sees coming. That being underestimated isn't a weakness. It's a tactical advantage. There are 11 other women out there with that same dragon tattoo, scattered across the world. Teaching classes, leading soldiers, carrying skills that most people wouldn't believe if you told them. Invisible until necessary. Undeniable when revealed. So the next time you see someone and think they don't belong, that they're not good enough, that they couldn't possibly measure up. Remember Sergeant Raina Voss standing in that training ring? Remember 3 men who thought size and strength were all that mattered. Remember how wrong they were. Because the most valuable lessons are often taught by the people we least expect, in the moments we least anticipate, in ways we never saw coming. If this story hits you the way it hit me, smash that like button and subscribe for more incredible, real-life stories that remind us why we should never judge a book by its cover. Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever been underestimated, or have you underestimated someone else? What happened? I read every single comment, and I want to hear your story. Until next time, remember, the quietest person in the room might just be the most dangerous. Stay humble, stay curious, and never forget that strength comes in forms you might not recognize, until it is standing right in front of you.